I know him. I know him is alive forevermore. And you have not come to meet any man, you have come to meet him, the author and the finisher of our faith, the beginning and the end. The one that says, come unto me, and I will give you rest. The one that says, are you laboring? Are you pressed down? He says, I'll give you joy. You don't need to pay anything. You just come the way you are. The saving Savior, the judge of all, the Lamb and the Lion of Judah's tribe, the one that came in form of man and came as a man and died for man, and is coming to deliver man, to quench the last enemy, death, the one that will give us life for eternity. I know him. The one who is above all your pain, I know him. And it's him I've come to present to you this hour. And it's him that you have come to, the firstborn among many brethren, the life, the bread of life, the water of life, the teacher, the deliverer, the intercessor, the Son of God, the Son of Man. What else again? You just look up to him this morning. It's him that we have come to. So I want you to assure you, know him, stand in him, stay in him. You see, no matter what you've been through, just stay with Christ. No matter what anybody have said, stay with Christ. He's the unchanging changer. Let's turn our Bible, please, to Philippians chapter 4. I just want to share something in the word of the Lord with us, the message that the God of all want me to share with you. Philippians chapter 4. We have been sharing from Philippians chapter 4, and we have been sharing on depression and how to be delivered from depression. You want to say why? Like I shared with us. If I tell you about Jesus, you want to tell me Jesus was God and is God. If I tell you about Peter, you want to tell me Peter walked with Jesus. If I tell you about Paul the Apostle, you want to tell me Paul the Apostle saw Jesus on the road to Damascus. He had a supernatural revelation. He had divine encounter. But I told you, and I submit to you, that Paul the Apostle also, he got to a point that he was at the point of giving up, despaired of life, that he said he would have even preferred that he should be dead because of the pain, affliction, and the contradictions of life that he encountered. Yeah. But I want to tell you that it's not just all these people alone that went through depression. And I'll tell you why we have been sharing on depression. And I'm going to give you the reason why depression. Because I've asked God, why don't I let you know? I shared with us, and I want to retreat and repeat. I received a message during the week, and I'm going to repeat this. Permit me that the message that we shared sometimes for some time right now, especially on depression, I don't know what happened. We're receiving messages online that they couldn't hear it. They couldn't listen to it, that there was no voice there. And we are listening to it here in this part of the world, and there were voices there. So I knew that there was, or there is, an onslaught from the camp of the adversary that doesn't want people to be delivered. So I would say some things, maybe you might have heard them before, by the grace of God. You know, I shared with us that depression comes when there is a pressure on something. And when you bring an iron on a pillow, a fluffy pillow, and you lift it up, you find out that that pillow that was pressed down will come up again. But if you leave that iron weighty on the pillow, what happens? After some time, that pillow takes the shape of pressure that the iron pressed on it. So by the time you remove the iron, do you know what happened? The pillow would have been flattened out. And many of us are flattened out. Whether you are a Christian or you are not a Christian, where we are living in today, we are flattened out. We walk around with pressure. Even some Christians, if I tell you this, pastors, believers, children of God, even when the weight has been lifted, we have assumed the shape that the weight placed on us. And that's why you find out that we're not fulfilling purpose and we're not living life fully. I tell you, and I repeat, when we talk about joy, many of us don't believe that we are candidates for joy. When we talk about celebration, many of us are taking celebration to be an event. Oh, maybe you are marking your birthday. Oh, you bagged a degree. Oh, you got stimulus check. Oh, you got a raise. Oh, someone gave you a surprise gift. So we have taken celebration, joy, and take it and fix it with such things, to the extent that we are sad, sorrowful, and not fulfilled in a day when nothing happens to us. Some of us, activities has become our source of joy. You have to be good before you feel joy. It's good to be good. It's good to be kind. It's good to be nice. But if that is the reason why you are happy, you are delighted, you are excited, what about when you don't have anyone to be good to? What about when you don't have anyone to encourage? What about when you don't have something to give to anyone? Does that mean your joy is tied to activities? What about when you are not celebrating? What about when they don't invite you for celebration? What about when nobody calls you to say, how are you? Does that mean that you are not meant to have joy? What is it? You find out that we have taken the shape in which the pressure had molded us into. We have been molded and we have taken the shape of that mold. To the extent that when we hear good news, we are happy. When we hear untoward news, oh, we are sorrowful. We are sad. When someone walks out on you, you are like you want to quench your life. You just want everything to disappear. What about when you receive a letter that your appointment is terminated? Does that mean you can't live life anymore? What about when you are not in church? What about when you are not among believers? Does that mean you can't worship God from the depth of your heart? So when we talk about joy, some of us, what we think of is only when event occurs. And I'm telling us that that is not life at all. That's not what Christ has come for. That is not what we are meant to be. When people pour their spleen on you, can you still be happy? When people that you trust disappoint you. I laughed. You see, the picture coming is this. Parents, I thank God for our children. We have all been children also. And I thank God for my children. But what about when the children looks at you and banged the door and walked out on you? What do you do? Few days back, Israel asked me a question, and I said, I'm not giving him. And he stood back and he looked at me and said, I don't like you. Do I bring Padu and begin to spank him? Then I would lose him forever. Many of us have lost our loved ones because we reacted. I don't know if you're getting the picture. Many homes are broken because the wife said this. Because the husband did this. We walked out. And after walking out, we now take the toga, the garment of X, and you don't know how to come back to life again. I was sharing with my wife, I said, many of us, we run from one X to another X to another X to another X, until we also have become X's, instead of becoming an executive in life. Rather than being execution, rather than executing purpose, we are executing ourselves. So you find out X, my X, my X, my X, my X, my X. And the more X's you have, the more you lose who you are. Is it when you lose money? I'm sharing with my wife during the week. I said, I find out that money has become the determining factor of how we relate with ourselves. I don't know when money has now become the worth we place, the value we placed on people. Mark my words. Because you said, I'm not giving you, that should not affect who you are to me, who am I to you. Or because I give you, that does not mean I should become your Lord. I've always been saying this. You find out that we destroy the future because of substances, material things that we are going to live on this earth. I've never seen any man, any woman, that on the deathbed, he asked, can you bring all my wealth for me? Can you bring all the things I've acquired and bury them with me? Let me tell you, even if you write it in your will and say they should bury everything with you, that same night, they will exhume it from you. I don't want to go into this. I know of someone that told me, this is how I want my burial to be. This is how I want everything to be done. Right the very day this person went to be with the Lord, it was another thing the family was saying. You might think, oh, everything. But you know the reason why? The pressure. And if we allow pressure to now make us to be who God did not make us to be, where do we go from here? And whether you like it or not, I want to share something before we go to Philippians chapter 4. Let's turn our Bible to 1 Timothy. Oh, sorry, I said 1 Timothy, I mean 2 Timothy. I want us to see the life we're living, the world we're living in. And I want you to say this. This know also, 2 Timothy chapter 3, I'm reading from verse 1. Know also that in the last days, I will read from KJV, but for time, give it to us in Passion Translation. I will read it in Passion Translation also, but you just go straight to Passion Translation. This know also that in the last days, perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fairs, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. And verse 5 will shock you. Because you might say the church has failed you. You might say pastors have failed you. You might say brothers have failed you. I read verse 5. It says, having a form of godliness. They have the form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Why? Because of this sort are they which crept into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sin. When you see silly women, it's not just women that the Bible is talking to, but also churches, also men as well. They were led astray by what? By these people having the form of godliness, but denying the part thereof, without natural affection. Truce breakers, false accusers. They accuse wrongly. They led people away with diverse laws. How? They deceive you. They tell you, they promised you, they teach you what is like God, but against God. I'll read, give it to us from verse 1 in Passion Translation. But you need to be aware that in the final days, where we are living in right now, the culture of society will become extremely fierce. Wow. People will be self-centered, lovers of themselves, and they will be obsessed with money. They will boast of great things as they strut around in their arrogant pride and mock all that is right. Are you seeing it today? Mocking everything that is right. They will ignore their own families. They will be ungrateful and ungodly. They will become addicted to hateful and malicious slander and slaves to their desires. Have you not heard today in this world, if it feels good, do it. Do what satisfies you. Have you heard the word telling you, follow your own heart? When the word of God says the heart of man is desperately evil, wicked, And the word will tell you, follow your life, follow your heart. They are slaves to their own desires. It's my body, it's my money, it's my life. You can't tell a woman that what is inside her is another life. She will tell you it's her body. Slaves to their own desires. They will be ferocious, belligerent, haters of what is good and what is right. With brutal treachery, they will act without restraint, bigoted. Have you not seen it? Let me say this. We are so bigotry that bigotism has become our ways of life. When I say this, sincerely, anytime, any day, I thank God for everyone seated in this auditorium. Give the Lord a hand of praise. You find out, they will tell you, I can't relate with you because of this skin, because of that. Here we have everyone, both educated and yet to be educated. They want to say no. It is what bigoted and wrapped in clouds of their conceit. They will find their delight in the pleasure of this world more than the pleasure of the loving God. Verse 5. They may pretend to have a respect for God, but in reality, they want nothing to do with God's power. He now wants us, stay away from people like these. Verse 6. For they are the ones who worm their ways into the heart of vulnerable women, spending the night with those who are captured by their lust and steeped in sin. I don't know what you have read, but if you're thinking only of bedroom, not only bedroom, even in boardroom, in the night, even on the street, even in our hearts, they spend the night. They lure you, not just for coitus relationship, but for emotional relationship. They are always learning, but never discover the revelation knowledge of truth. John chapter 14. I want you to see something in John chapter 14. Because I'm sharing something with us. When we talk about depression, verse 1 says, don't worry or surrender to your fear, for you've believed in God. Now, Jesus saying, don't worry and don't surrender to your fear. You know what fear does? Fear comes to put weight on you. Fear of what will happen. Fear of what will not happen. And fear of what is happening. Many times, we fear what is happening. When the fear comes, we become scared. And we become stultified. We become stunted. What does fear does? Fear dissipates our energy. Simple. Whatever causes you to stop and not to move is fear. Fear of what is happening right now. Fear of disease. Fear of not having it. Fear of being ignored, being rejected. Or fear of where to go. There's what we call holy fear that God had placed in us, that warns us of danger that is coming. I'm not talking about that fear right now. But I'm talking of fear that brings weight on you, and you are pressed down, and you are immobile, and you can't do anything. Fear of my check will not take me to the end of the month. Fear of what happened in the past. And fear of what will happen tomorrow. You see other things. Jesus said, don't worry. And don't give in to your fear. Because fear comes with weight. Many of us, we don't fear past. Many of us, we don't fear right now. But some of us are scared and we are afraid of facing God. Some of us, we don't bother about what will happen tomorrow. But what we fear is, where am I going to spend eternity? Fear of, am I measured up enough? And let me tell you one of the fears that falls on every man. The fear of, am I enough? Am I enough for me? Am I enough for my family? Am I enough for my society? And am I enough to be in heaven? We have all these fears. And such fears, Jesus said, don't worry and don't surrender to your fear. Look at that word. It's not that fear will not come, but you don't have to surrender to it. If I tell you that you are not going to have such fears, it's a lie. But he says, don't surrender to it. You know why? Because when fear comes, it doesn't have the power over you until you surrender to that fear. Take note of that. Don't surrender to your fear. Because fear comes to take hold of you. Some of us seated here this morning, you park your car outside, or you have the key to your room. If I come and say, let me have the key to your car, if you give me the key, that means you have surrendered your car to me. But if you said no, that means you are not surrendering that car outside to me. Are we getting it? So when Jesus said, don't surrender to your fear. You know, for me coming to you, that means we have relationship. That means I know you. That means I relate with you. So when he comes and says, don't surrender to your fear, it means that fear comes to take you. But don't surrender to that fear. And I'll tell you, people who had faced fears in life, and that brings me back. So if I tell you about some men that God had used in the past, and who are those ones? I've given us Elijah, the one that is really, really often being spoken about, that gave in to his fear. This was a man of God. The prayer, when you read from 1 Kings chapter 17, he came on the scene. And the whole city, the whole nation were not following God. But he